Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching again. I'm really excited for this week. We're going to be wrapping up our series called Propel. We'll be launching into our summer series the week after this week, so looking forward to that as well. Before we get into our curriculum, I want to continue with our Small Group Leader's Guide to Success. We've been looking at 5 keys to being a better leader. The first thing we said was let's be present with our students. Show up predictably, show up mentally, and show up randomly. Last week we were talking about, well, let's create a safe place. We got to lead the group, respect the process, and guard the heart for our students. And this week is a really big one that I feel like sometimes I miss and that we miss as leaders in the church, but we've got to partner with parents. Now this jar here has 40 marbles in it, and this is the amount of hours a year we have as a church to impact students. Now if I fill up this jar, it would be about 200 marbles, and so you can kind of get the scale that we're talking about, but parents have 3,000 hours a year to impact a student's life. So if we join together with the family, we combine our influences that we can partner together and share what we're talking about with our parents, we all of a sudden have 3,040 hours as a church to impact a student's life. So if we partner with families and partner with parents, it creates great opportunities for us to impact the lives of our students. There's 3 ways that we do that. The first way is cue the parent. And very rarely will parents refuse a meeting with another adult that cares about their child or their student. And I've had some of the best conversations with parents just after a phone call going, hey, would you meet for coffee? I want to talk about little Johnny for whatever reason. And just to talk and partner with the parents and just say how great he is or how great she is. Those meetings are fantastic because it shows the parents that we care. The second thing we do is we honor the parent. We don't talk bad about a student's parent, even when it's easy. We got to remember that our role as leaders in the church is to be a mentor in the lives of our students, not a parent. And so how can we partner with parents and how can we redirect students back into the parent's family and back into the parent's direction when things are a little rocky at home? Sometimes that's hard to do, but we've got to support the parents. And the third thing is we reinforce the family. Everything we do should point back to the importance of family in a student's life. When a student comes to you complaining about a parent, hear them out, help them see the role of their family in the end. We listen, and then we help our students understand the importance of a family and a safe place to go home to at the end of the day. So let's reinforce family, let's partner with parents to have 3,040 hours a year instead of just 40 as the church. We can multiply our potential and we've got great things ahead of us with that. So like I was saying, this week we're in week 4 of Propel. The past few weeks we've been talking about things that grow our faith and things that make our faith grow bigger and stronger than ever before. Today, or this Sunday, we're going to be talking about something that you and I have no control over, but it has incredible potential to shape our faith if we allow it. This something is called a pivotal circumstance. If you've ever played a sport, you know what it means to pivot, or to turn, or to change directions, and that's what pivotal circumstances do. They turn our lives upside down or push us in a direction we didn't intend to go. Regardless of how young or how old you are, we all have experiences of these kinds of events in our lives. Now here are some examples for students' perspective. Some students might be saying, well, a pivotal moment is my best friend moved to another state. My dad lost his job and then we lost our house. My sister has cancer. My mom left us and my dad doesn't know what to do. Or I tore my ACL in the first game of the season. I mean, the list goes on and on for these pivotal moments in a student's life. So what allows these events to build our faith is how we respond to them. So working in the church world, I've walked with people through a lot of personal and pivotal moments in their lives. Over and over again, as I see people walk through the most difficult kinds of circumstances, I've seen them come out on the other side with a solid, rock, unshakable foundation of faith. And it's hard to imagine that happening on the front side. But they do, and it's incredible to watch. In fact, you rarely hear a faith story that doesn't eventually include some amazing, out-of-the-blue, didn't sign up for it kind of circumstance. You listen and think, well, this isn't good. How are they going to recover from this? And how then they come through saying, God did something in the middle of my circumstance. And I don't think he could have done it any other way. I wouldn't have signed up for it. I wouldn't go through it again. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But God used a circumstance that looked really bad to grow my faith in a really good way. Sometimes our idea of good and God's idea of good are different. But God is always good. That's what we believe. So how do we live in the tension when it doesn't seem good to us right now, trusting that God is always good. Now, these circumstances can be described in no other way than pivotal. They're defining moments, times when it seems like God was far away, but he ended up being much closer than we ever thought. When you get on the other side, you're able to look back and say, wow, there is a God, and I believe he knows my name, and I know when I address him as Father, it's not just a religious term anymore, it's personal. He's no longer something I learned about in church, he's relational. When people encounter these sorts of circumstances, suddenly things get really, really personal. Now this week we're going to look at the story of Lazarus, and how Jesus came into that pivotal moment in his family's life. It's a story of Mary, Lazarus, and Martha. These three weren't just random people that Jesus stumbled upon. They were close friends with Jesus. So after Lazarus gets sick, Mary and Martha reach out to Jesus, and the sisters sent word to Jesus, and they sent a messenger to find Jesus who was probably 2, 3, even 4 days away on travel by foot. Their message said, Lord, the one you love is sick. Now they knew Jesus would automatically know who they were talking about, so there was no need to even say his name because they loved this family. They knew Jesus loved their family. So Mary and Martha knew Jesus had healed many people, even strangers, so of course, when Lazarus became sick with a life-threatening illness, they called on Jesus to come. Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Yet when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was for 2 more days. In other words, Jesus did exactly what you would not expect him to do. He did nothing. So 2 days passed, and Jesus said to his disciples, let us go back to Judea. This threw the disciples for a loop. The last time they were there, they had nearly been stoned to death. So there was some hesitation in the group about returning, but Jesus goes on to explain why it is so important. He says, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up. His disciples replied, Lord, if he sleeps, he'll get better. Then Jesus told them very plainly, Lazarus is dead. Now, can you imagine what the disciples were thinking? They knew the closeness of Jesus' relationship with Lazarus and his sisters, and yet Jesus had allowed Lazarus to die. Now, Jesus continued, and it's for your sake, I'm glad we're not there. The next word that Jesus used translates into so that in the Greek. So in the Greek language, these next words are really pivotal because it's the so that moment. So in other words, Jesus says, I'm about to tell you the reason I've allowed this to happen. You want to know why I'm glad I wasn't there? You want to know why I allowed this horrible, tragic thing to occur? So that you may believe. That's verse 15. Now Jesus used this whole situation, as terrible as it was, to stretch people's faith. The death of his closest friend was worth it because of what it did for people's faith. Now think about that. A lot of people say, I can't believe in a God who would allow, just fill in the blank. You need to know something. If you don't believe in that kind of God, you don't believe in the God of the Bible, because the God of the Bible allows things like this to happen in order to better connect with us personally. That's the good part of God. Jesus then said, but let us go to him. Days passed. As Jesus finally approached his friend's house, Martha saw him and ran to him. She fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had only been here, my brother would not have died. Now Martha continued, but I know even now God will give you whatever you ask. She's standing in front of Jesus. She was broken and angry, but even then, she still believed that God would give Jesus anything he asked for. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live, even though he dies, and whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? This was a moment this is what the moment was really all about. In the emotion of the circumstances, and the confusion and the hurt and the pain, the question is this: who is Jesus? Really? Where we put our trust and confidence is what matters, especially in the circumstances that could wreck our faith. And so Martha responds, yes, Lord, she told him, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who was to come into the world. Martha believed. She believed in Jesus, though her brother was dead. Jesus didn't show up on time to save her brother, but she still trusted him. Now John tells us after this, Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him. Jesus felt in that moment exactly what we feel when we mourn, when we get no answer, and when our hope is shattered. Jesus gets our difficult and challenging circumstances. He understands. And then Jesus does something crazy. He asks Mary and Martha if they'd have their servants remove the stone covering Lazarus' grave. But at this point, Lazarus has been in the tomb for 3 or 4 days. This can't be a pretty sight. So this was a strange request. Then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" In other words, move the stone. Imagine the drama of the people wondering what would happen next. Then Jesus prayed an interesting prayer, and it went something like this: God, you know what I'm about to do. God, I know what I'm about to do. But I just want to open my mouth and say out loud to you, God, I want everyone to know that I do this not of my own power, but of yours. I want to establish that we have a connection, that I'm your son. And Jesus said, Lazarus, come out. And he did. Literally, Lazarus walks out alive. Now the story ends this way. Therefore, many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary and had seen what Jesus did put their faith in him. Gosh, talk about a pivotal moment in the lives of the people that were around in that time. Now, whenever life gets hard, whether it's with family, friends, health, money, our future, or regret, our first response is to think that we're alone and Jesus doesn't care. But what I love about this story is the window we get to see into as Jesus shows emotion. He cares a lot about our pain. Jesus shows up, Jesus is present, and he experiences it with us. God doesn't remove himself from us, God draws closer. It's possible to go through the toughest pain and possible to come out through it trusting God more, not because God made it go away, but because God used it to stretch you and grow your faith and show you more about himself. And when that happens, people around us will see God in a bigger way, just like the people surrounding Mary and Martha. It will make God more obvious to them, and maybe, just maybe, they will choose to trust God more. See, your faith is on the line in the middle of these life difficult situations. But the faith of people around you may also be on the line too. And when you hit bumps in your life, it might be that God's goal is not just for you to get past it. It could be that God wants you to do something through you in the life of someone else. All of us will experience pivotal circumstances, tough days, life-changing moments, but it's our responsibility to choose how we respond to them and whether we're willing to let them grow our faith. So that's what we're talking about this week. Really excited to talk about the way that life's difficulties can grow our faith together in Christ. So I hope you're excited about this week. I think we'll have some great discussions about this. It's something that reaches across the board that everybody feels at some point in their life. So if you're here on the Anona campus serving, we'll meet here at 4:45 for our small group leader huddle. Can't wait to see you there. And then for those of us that are serving out on the 360 United campus, Omar will meet with you guys to pray and do your small group leader celebration time and get ready for youth program out there at some point in the morning. Thanks for everything, guys. I couldn't do this without you. We couldn't have such an amazing youth program without dedicated leaders like you. So thank you. Have a great rest of the week. See you later.